In this age of AI, WordPress just starts to feel like a dinosaur compared to tools like Lovable, Bold, and Replit, because the workflow in these tools is just so superior. You get a chat on the left, you have kind of like a chatting partner, but it also actually does the work for you. It designs the pages for me, it builds the pages for me, it looks decent if you give it great instructions. And that's why there are many people now that are leaving WordPress. And I cannot blame them, but I have done quite a bit of research, and WordPress today is still better at SEO, at client management. It has a solid backup options. And you have, of course, a lot more design control because you have the page builder, which sometimes is just easier than prompting. But I think the biggest reason why WordPress starts to feel slow is because you have to drag and drop everything, right? Like everything is a manual thing, and then you have to go into the settings and click and click and click. But now it's starting to look like that the lovely workflow from tools like Lovable is coming to WordPress thanks to tools like Novamira, and that is possible because we now have this thing called MCP, which is just a technology that lets you connect your agent, for example Claude or ChatGPT, to WordPress. And I already did a video on this a few weeks ago, which you can see here, where I showed some of the basic functionalities, which is already really cool because it's free, but that free plugin needs a lot of direction in order to make it useful. And so some people in the comments said that, hey, I can still do this faster than what you're showing right here in that video. And I would honestly agree with these guys because the free version of Novamira needs a lot of direction. That said, I have now learned that with the right instructions, it can actually become a really powerful, fast tool, to the point where it can set up WordPress for you. It can create your custom post types, taxonomies, then create all kinds of fields with relevant dummy data in there, then design a whole page inside of Elementor and connect all of the fields up to the ACF fields. This is crazy. And as some of you have seen, I did a live stream testing Novamira Pro, but now I've realized that I did a few things wrong in that live stream. And since I've learned the new tricks, I am incredibly excited because it's starting to look like more and more that we also don't have to do everything manually if we're using a system like WordPress. And again, I don't think we need WordPress for every single website in the world, and the other platforms are catching up. But today I'm still finding myself using WordPress for the more complex projects. And so let's take a look at Novamira Pro because this is amazing. Okay, so I did test on two websites, both of them after the live stream. Okay, so the first one is this real estate website. Like I showed you, it successfully created the custom post types with the right settings, exactly how I want it. It added a little icon here. Then it also added a few taxonomies, which it then connected back to those post types. So we can see them over here. It generated some dummy data here, which is actually relevant to this website. And so this is a real estate website. Now inside of these posts, you can see that the categories are connected as well. All of the ACF fields are here, which it also generated. There's a little description here. It generated an image, which is not good for this website because it's just using Unsplash, but you can also hook it up to, for example, Higgs Field MCP and then generate the images which it will then upload to your media library. And it even worked with the relationship field over here to make sure that there is a real estate agent connected to this house. And then I ask it to design and build a single post template with the dummy data. And it came up with this design by itself. As you can see, it used the correct post content widget. This title over here is connected to the post title. The image here in the background is connected to the featured image, and I did not click anywhere. It did all of this. Claude did all of this by itself. And it also made some mistakes. So for example, this should be a relationship field, but relationships is not a feature that's available inside of Elementor, and therefore it just converted it to static content. And the same is over here. There's no repeater in Elementor, and so it converted it to this. And there were some responsive issues, but not a lot. Oh yeah, also the colors For example, I told it to add colors to the site settings, and then I told it to connect all of the colors to the global colors. It did that. First time it did not connect the typography well, so I had to reprompt it, but then it connected it to my global typography. As you can see, some issues here on the right, but that's easily fixable, and mobile actually looks pretty good. And then let's go to my other website. This is the website I actually started in the live stream, which is a car listing website. So let's, for example, go to this Porsche. Okay, you can see all of these fields here. Here it added some fields to the gallery. This is a ACF Pro, by the way. You can see a repeater over here. Let's check out the front end. Okay, so this is the front end. And look at this. There is a gallery field from ACF Pro. This is not a widget that's available inside of Elementor Pro. It designed this page. It's similar to that other website because it's also a listing website. But then look at this. This is dynamic data, and Elementor Pro doesn't have the functionality to only display the checkboxes that the user has checked on over here. So how did I do that? And same with the service history. The service history is a repeater field over here. So here we are in the inside, and this first thing is an ACF Pro gallery. But have you ever seen this widget? No, you haven't, because this is a new widget that Claude generated for me. Look, and it's completely customizable. I told it that I want a few sliders. I told it that I want responsive controls because these things should be smaller on a mobile. And it's loading in the content from ACF. Let's take a look over here. So this is for the feature checkboxes. Look, it just created this widget. I can change the columns over here. For example, the batch size, I can now change it into an icon. I prompted it to do that. We have all of the settings here, even vertical offsetting, which is something that was not even available in Elementor for years in the icon list widget. And there's some more sliders over here. And then this one is another custom widget for the service history, which is a repeater field. And there's a few options to display this list. For example, these fields wrap automatically, but if I turn this off, now I have a way here to change the width of each column to make it exactly how I want. Is this cool or is this cool? I think this is insane because these are the kind of features that I've been wanting in Elementor for years. And this is Elementor V3, right? And we're moving to V4, but as I said before, V4 is not fully ready, but I also did some tests in Elementor V4. So what you're seeing right here was also generated with Claude, and then according to the design CSS framework that I'm developing right now, for example, it added this class itself, which I set up, which has some variables in it. Let's take a look at this container. You can see that there is a section container, which has certain padding values in here. So if I want to make a change, it's as easy as just asking Claude. So let's say we have these fields right here, but these fields are all 100% width, which is absolutely not needed because these are just some number fields, right? So I'm just going to go to Claude and I'm going to start a new chat with Opus 4.7. Can you minimize the width of the custom fields? And you have to tell it one time what website it is. So I'm just telling it it's this website, which I already connected via the MCP. Let's provide it with a screenshot. And let's see the magic happen. Sometimes it's asking you a question if it's not clear. Maybe my prompt was not good enough. So let's challenge it a little bit. Use your best judgment. But many of the fields can be smaller. You can maybe even do more than 2 on one row. All the custom fields. And it's making a plan. I don't even have to think about what field should be what width. And there we go, all 10 fields updated. It's checking up on itself. And it's now seeing that the order is not correct. Okay, it says it's done now. No PHP, no hacks. Just a default ACF features. Let's give it a refresh. And there you go. Look at that. The fields are now a different width. I didn't have to do anything. These are still white, which make a lot of sense. This is perfect. And yes, I know I'm now doing it task by task, but with Novamira Pro, you get instructions. And in here, you can tell it exactly what you want it to do, how you want it to do, and what it can do without your permission. And so here, for example, I told it to always use the available features instead of creating custom PHP, because that's actually what it wants by default. It wants to write custom PHP, which it then puts inside of a sandbox. I'm a no-coder, so I don't want to see PHP. I wanted to use the systems, the no-code systems that I have inside of WordPress. And this also makes it more superior for me to edit compared to a platform like Lovable, where I cannot really mess with the code because I'm not a coder. And yes, I know you can prompt everything, but here you have both options. You can use the AI for speed, and then you can still go in and do things manually the old way. And sometimes you do need to do that because the AI messes up. But even this system is not perfect, I have to say. So the idea behind Novamira Pro is that it's better, it has more instructions, and specifically it is optimized for Elementor and Bricks. So it's trained on how to use these tools. But even then, it's not perfect. And I have been in contact with the owner of this plugin because I already knew this guy from a WordCamp that I went to a few years ago, because Novamira is actually made by the owners of Dynamic.ooo. You can see it over here. And I told them everything that I run into, the problems. They also told me some things they're working on. So they're improving the ACF system right now. Now I had to give it quite a bit of instructions in order for ACF to work properly. They're going to improve the V3 widget generator. Maybe you've seen it, but like Elementor's NG also has a V3 widget generator. I'm imagining that that one will probably be better because Novamira has no instructions for Elementor V3 widget generator, which they will add later. They did already have some instructions for Elementor V4 widget generator. I did not test it yet. I only tested with layout and classes and variables, but I did not create V4 widgets yet. Another thing I told them is that I would love to have the actual PHP to be editable and transferable, because now you can only disable it. But if I create a widget here, maybe I also want to use it on another website, right? So maybe like an export or like an edit field. I also learned a few things from that call. Apparently, if you're doing more difficult tasks like creating custom widgets or setting up custom post types where it really has to be good on the first try, then they highly recommend to use the best AI model you have available. I have Opus 4.7 right now. I've heard that ChatGPT 5.5 is making a comeback, so maybe that one will be good. But if you're doing a difficult task and you see that it messes up, just start a new chat and then pick the best model. Then another thing that's interesting is that the memory is actually more for the agent. So you can see that on this website. The human should kind of write the instructions over here, and then the agent saves stuff on the memory so that it's better the next time. So here you can see this is something that Claude wrote as an instruction for itself, which is pretty interesting. What you can also do is create a skill inside of Claude and then trigger that. I actually forgot to do that in my live stream, and therefore there were a lot of problems. So I'm excited actually to do another live stream because now I understand it a lot better and I think we can move a lot faster. But they said they're also maybe working on something where where you can put skills in here, because if you're working with more people on one project, then you don't want the skill to be in your Claude co-work local environment because that's on your computer. You want it to be in the cloud so that more people can hook up their Claude or their codecs into this and then continue on the website in an agentic way. So let's talk a little bit about this potentially future workflow, right? How would you even start with a project like this? So there's a few ways to do it. What I did in the live stream is that I used Lovable for design. It's quite a basic design, but this is a great starting point, right? I had a few pages as references, and then I just made screenshots of this and then I feed that into Claude. And then with Claude, I discussed like, hey, what kind of custom fields and post types do we need for a website like this? So I used it also as a sparring partner in order to get to a plan. You should really work in steps. So I recommend to first set up WordPress, including your dynamic content, then dummy content, and then set up your page builder, so your whole design system, make sure it's in there before you start generating pages, and then you can start generating your pages and your templates, because it can then use your global design system and your dynamic data. In the live stream, I did actually start in my own web app, website Style Kit. I made this. When I started this, it was just a color palette generator, and it's still that, right? You can start with a simple color palette generator. These days, we also have a secondary color palette. The typography section is a lot better. So for example, you can pick a different font over here, which it will then preview. You can even set up the font sizes over here. And then once you're happy, you can go to export, and then you have two options to give to the AI. The first one is the preview, which will generate a PNG, which will be downloaded to your computer. Yes, you can download this and then give it to Claude and then say like, hey, this is the kind of styling I want to go for. The color palette, you can see green is a secondary accent here, and then just continue from there. Or we also now have the design.md feature, which is an instruction on the design that you chose on website Style Kit. So this is more specific, right? It has the actual hex values, etc. So you can just copy this and then feed that into Lovable, or even in Claude Design or whatever AI design tool you want to use, and then use that as a starting point to generate your design. And then once you have a design that you're happy with, then of course you should talk about the technical setup, like what do you need to make this happen? What page builder do you use? What version of the page builder, right? Is it a V3 website or a V4 website or a Bricks website? So that's the workflow that I'm imagining. But again, I'm still in the process of like making my instruction file better, because it's not flawless yet. It is so much better than the first time that I tried it. And I think in a few months from now, this can reduce the amount of clicking you have to do by like 80%, which is the point that I made in my AI video. I said in the future, we're not going to do everything manually anymore. We're going to go to a future where the agent is going to do most of the design and the build, and it's up to you to make good decisions. And that's also where your value is. Again, we're not being paid to click around, we're being paid for a result. And great companies want great people who are really fast. Because in the future, that's going to be the question, right? Do you want a great person who is slow, or do you want a great person who is fast? Your decisions are your value. And that's what we should remember going into this agentic age. And I say this because in the first video that I made about Novamira, there were some comments of people saying, hey, yeah, but I am faster than Novamira. And I don't think that that's going to be true with this improved workflow. But even if there are people who are really fast at clicking around, like, why would you do that? You can just put Claude on a secondary screen and you can work on something else. And that's the beauty of it, right? That's the power that agentic workflow gives us. So we shouldn't try to compete with AI, see who is faster. No, if your process is in these instruction files and this is very, very clear, then the agent will do it exactly the way you want. Will it sometimes mess up? Sure, there will be some mistakes which you maybe have to fix, but hey, if you're outsourcing it to another person, you also have to do that. And so it's starting to look like we're going to a future where we're not spending a lot of time here in all of these panels. We're spending a lot of time here, and the interfaces like WordPress, they exist, but the agent interacts with it. But the agent doesn't click on buttons. The agent uses something called abilities. So here you can see the list of what the agent can do. And this is also more efficient than moving your mouse to a certain point and then clicking on it, because all of these interfaces are mainly designed for humans. But this is the language that agents speak. But to be fair, they need a lot of direction, because Claude by itself doesn't really know a lot about WordPress, and Novamira has tried to solve this by giving it skills for Elementor and for Bricks, but even then you probably need more input but we're gonna get to a point where the agent can just fully follow your system with your classes and your variables. Right now, again, Elementor is still finishing up version 4, they're catching up, but if you are a Bricks user today, then you can probably get pretty far with this workflow already if you can explain how it should work with your framework. That being said though, I do not recommend to do this on a live website. If you do this for client work, then do it on a staging. But I would recommend, if you don't have experience with it, just do a few testing projects like I am doing. You can also just wait for me to give you instructions because I'm of course preparing something so that we can all use this later. But to be fair, in order to get this functionality, you do need the Pro version, which is not free. It is, I think, 200 per what? Oh no, it's 200 lifetime. It's $100 per year, which is actually quite fair. By the way, this is not a sponsored video. I am genuinely excited about this because honestly, I have clicked enough in my life. If I can click less and still get to the same or very similar result, I am willing to invest a lot in that. And so I think for agencies, this is going to be an incredible value. Again, Novamira did not invent this, okay? This is MCP technology. WordPress also, Automatic also released an MCP, which is what Novamira is actually using under the hood. But they build a whole system around it, which makes it more powerful and has certain instructions on the tools that we like to use, because Automatic is probably not going to make an Elementor instruction skill, if you know what I mean. They're probably going to focus on Gutenberg. So yeah, this is just a view into the future. I'm figuring out this workflow, probably going to do some more live streams. I thought that this was incredibly interesting and cool to share. Let me know what you're thinking inside of the comments, and then I hope to see you in the next one.